Coming up on 5 Minute News. Database shows left-wing protests far less violent than right-wing attacks. Experimental COVID-19 vaccine is put to its biggest test. And Trump slashes major environmental rules. It's Tuesday, July 28. I'm Anthony Davis. Donald Trump has made warnings about the threat of Antifa and far-left fascism a central part of his re-election campaign. But in reality, left-wing attacks have left far fewer people dead than violence by right-wing extremists, new research indicates, and Antifa activists have not been linked to a single murder in decades. A new database of nearly 900 politically motivated attacks and plots in the United States since 1994 includes just one attack staged by an anti-fascist that led to fatalities. In that case, the single person killed was the perpetrator. Over the same time period, American white supremacists and other right-wing extremists have carried out attacks that have left at least 329 victims dead, according to the database. The findings were assembled by researchers at the Center for Strategic and International Studies, a centrist think tank. Its launch comes as Trump administration officials have echoed the president's warning of a violent left-wing revolution amid nationwide protests following the death of George Floyd. A new Justice Department task force on violent anti-government extremists listed Antifa as a major threat while making no mention of white supremacy. Defining which violent incidents constitute politically motivated acts of terrorism and trying to sort political violence into left-wing and right-wing categories is inherently messy and debatable work. Researchers who monitor extremist groups at the Anti-Defamation League and the Global Project Against Hate and Extremism say they, too, were not aware of a single murder linked to an American anti-fascist in the last 25 years. Given the discrepancies between the deadly toll of left-wing and right-wing violence, American law enforcement agencies have long faced criticism for failing to take the threat of white supremacist violence seriously, while at the same time overstating the risks posed by left-wing protesters. The biggest test yet of an experimental COVID-19 vaccine got underway on Monday, with the first of some 30,000 Americans rolling up their sleeves to receive shots created by the US government as part of the all-out global race to stop the coronavirus outbreak. The glimmer of hope came as Google, in one of the gloomiest assessments of the coronavirus's staying power from a major employer, decreed that most of its 200,000 employees and contractors should work from home through to next June, a decision that could influence other big companies. Final stage testing of the vaccine, developed by the National Institutes of Health and Moderna, Inc., began with volunteers at numerous sites around the US given either a real dose or a dummy without being told which. It will be months before results trickle in, and there is no guarantee the vaccine will ultimately work against the scourge that has killed about 650,000 people around the world, including almost 150,000 in the US. In Washington, the Trump administration disclosed that National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien has the virus, the highest-ranking US official to test positive so far. As for relief from the economic damage done by the virus, Republicans on Capitol Hill planned to roll out a $1 trillion package that could include a new round of $1,200 stimulus checks, but will reduce the extra $600 a week in federal unemployment benefits that are expiring for millions of Americans this week. Scientists set speed records getting a made-from-scratch vaccine into massive testing just months after the coronavirus emerged. But they stress that the public shouldn't fear that anyone is cutting corners. Scientists will closely track which group experiences more infections. The answer probably won't come until November or December, cautioned Dr. Anthony Fauci, the NIH's infectious diseases chief. Last week, Donald Trump achieved a long-standing goal in weakening environmental protection. The administration significantly narrowed the 50-year-old National Environmental Policy Act, a law that requires the government to study the impact of federal projects on the communities and wild areas around them. By skipping steps and shortening deadlines, these changes help to fast-track fossil fuel infrastructure like pipelines and highways, a move that leaves out the voices of poor neighborhoods and people of color on the pollution in their communities. This move is the latest in a litany of rollbacks. The president's agencies have already weakened more than 100 regulations for power plants, cars, and oil and gas operations, allowing more mercury and arsenic from coal-fired power plants, and limiting which waterways the federal government will regulate. But the rest of this year will be unlike anything we've seen yet, as the president pushes to deliver on his 2016 campaign pledge to essentially get rid of the Environmental Protection Agency. Democratic nominee Joe Biden has already pledged to reverse Trump's environmental policies, but that will take time. You can subscribe to 5-Minute News on YouTube with your preferred podcast app. Ask your smart speaker or enable 5-Minute News as your Amazon Alexa flash briefing skill. Visit us online at 5minute.news. 5-Minute News is an independent production covering politics, inequality, health, and climate, delivering unbiased, verified, and truthful world news daily.